Today I have international Tier 1 staff instructor Greg Nichols, who drove down from the Phoenix area to come visit us down here in beautiful Tucson. We got to do some shooting. Greg is a gentleman I have known for quite a few years now. I've had the opportunity to train with and train under. So thank you very much for making the drive down here. I really appreciate you coming down here, and now we get to have a pretty rad conversation, I'm hoping.
Yeah, absolutely. Should be fun.
Yeah, man. So let's start just like anything, right from the beginning. So we have a pretty diverse audience. So fill us in on what your background is and how you got to become a Tier 1 Suarez International staff instructor.
Okay, just kind of thumbnail sketch of firearms, Second Amendment history. I started competitively shooting at 11, joined the service, spent almost 10 years as a military policeman, became an expert in counterinsurgency and urban warfare, or MOUT, or UCOIN, depending on which one's which you're doing.
Sure.
But they do kind of intersect. So been a recognized expert in that for Lord knows how long.
So I'm going to enter real quick, COIN, just for the folks that don't know. It's an acronym, so can you
UCOIN, Urban Counterinsurgency.
Okay, perfect. And you were doing that within the continental United States?
Yes.
All right.
Yep. Well, we taught it
Sure.
within the continental United States. And they kind of dovetail into each other because a lot of the counterinsurgency action, especially like kinetic action and going hands-on, is going to be in an urban environment rather than a rural environment. So it having a good good knowledge base in close range gunfighting and military operations, urban terrain, which is what MOUT is.
Sure.
Having a good knowledge base in that really feed each other. They really do. So, and then I started teaching for Suarez International in 2009, I believe. I was NRA certified instructor prior to that, just doing some, concealed carry classes and a little bit more advanced marksmanship stuff. I competitively shot IPSC for, 6-8 years. And that's pretty much it.
So you got a lot of rounds and trigger time throughout this entire course of time here. So let me ask you, what is a Tier 1 staff instructor do for Suarez International as opposed to, Tier 2, however many tiers there may be in that organization?
Right. Our Tier 1 instructors are the instructors that will be tapped to when I first moved down here to Arizona, we did some just-in-time training for the Phoenix metro area, counterterrorism and SWAT units for the Super Bowl.
Sure.
So Tier 1's going to get tapped for that. The top instructors in the organization, the Suarez organization, are going to be tapped to come in and teach that sort of content. Because when you're walking into a room with that level of talent, you got to walk in chest first. You got to know what you're doing. You got to understand not only the mechanics but the tactics and the mindset and the appropriate way to convey that to people at that level. So I can teach anything in the Suarez curriculum. I generally focus on our terrorist actor shooter interdiction class and CQB, which is close quarters battle, for those of you that don't know. Close quarters battle, so room clearing and attacking a structure, essentially.
Having gone through your terrorist and active shooter interdiction course, tell us a little bit more about that course and specifically.
That course is listed as a 2-day course. My version, I added a third day because I thought that adding some fighting and structures component to it just brought more value, and I thought there was a lot more information that could be conveyed in a third day that you didn't have enough room to fit into a 2-day class. So I started doing 3-day classes of both the CQB and the terrorist active shooter interdiction, but essentially that's for anybody. to come in and learn how to, if you're at a mall, how do you mitigate risk if you see an active shooter? When should you engage? How to apply our flow chart into your daily life of, can you shoot this person? Can you not? What to say, how to say it. And it's not the lecture portion like our Killing Within the Law class. But it's more the physical and the mindset of, how do you do this? If you're being held hostage, what should you do? Should you pick up, active shooter's weapon? What if there's multiple shooters? And there's a lot of things. Some are just like basic truths, observe the masses, do the opposite. If you see everybody running one direction, go the other way. Because I'd rather get the chance to shoot the bad guy than get trampled by, a 400-pound idiot that's in a panic.
Sure.
Well,
let me ask you this: is how relevant do you think that still is in the given sphere? I know my personal opinion on the matter, and my personal opinion on the matter, but I'd like to hear especially with being a subject matter expert, how much value do you think classes like that hold versus some of the classes that you're seeing offered by other folks out there, which seem to be very much, let's come shoot 250, 500 rounds a day type round count that we were discussing earlier today.
Right. Yeah. Like the CQB class, it's all dry. The one I teach is all dry. We don't even use airsoft. I was considering creating a CQB2 class, which would be all airsoft, so that when you make a mistake, you pay for it.
And this would be open to civilians?
Yes, it's open to anybody. We don't have, unless we're teaching a specific, like when we were teaching the Counter-terrorism unit, that was a specific thing, that was not open to the public. But you can go to the Suarez International website and see the class lists that are up there, and the calendar of events and when and where and who is teaching. And sorry, I lost my train of thought.
We were talking about the relevancy.
Oh, the relevance of TASI. I think a lot of it is still relevant. Do I think the threat level has gone down with potential for terrorism here being, the
classical that we've known in the past?
Yeah, the classic
20 years or so.
S-vest guys,
yeah.
And or some dude who wants to go meet 72 virgins and start shooting up a mall or whatever. I think we've gotten a little bit away from that, especially, as the military's drawn down, their presence in theater. I think a lot of that America hate is still going to be there in those foreign countries, but I also think that the likelihood here domestically has gone down.
What do you attribute that to?
Probably just the environment. I'm not saying it's going to go away, because
I'd be inclined to agree with you. I don't think. I mean, it'll always exist in some degree or another.
Yeah. We're the the king shits. I mean, we're it, and everybody hates somebody that's better, and I'm America first, always have been, always will be. And, that American sense of pride, they want to hurt that and they want to damage that. What I see more now that I find more concerning than the active shooter type scenario are the riots. Those I think are more concerning. So if I was going to update the TASI curriculum, I would probably do a little bit less on an active shooter and more maybe multi-target engagement, and I would probably take elements from a lot of our movement and shooting curriculum and add that to the mix, because if you want to stay alive, you got to be mobile. And even with a gun, if you've got 100 people burning buildings down, and can happen at spur of the moment. Like, what's his name? Rittenhouse.
Rittenhouse, yeah.
I thought he did a fantastic job, but I also think he was woefully unprepared, just mentally, tactically, and physically. And I don't even agree with him being there. I agree with the idea of him being there. He wanted to help, but would I have gone? No.
No, I can appreciate that. I can't tell you I'd be there myself either, and that's neither here nor there in the grand scheme of things. The fact of the matter is you found yourself there.
Yeah,
I tend to avoid those things, but I completely appreciate the fact that, listen, if it happens, and we haven't seen it in a little bit now, post-election,
right?
Yeah. Do I think we'll see it again? Yeah, absolutely. I think we'll see it again. I guess it all depends on, election cycles and same, because it seems to run in tandem with that, doesn't it?
Well, I think Brandon's running the country into the ground, well enough that it's going to have a dramatic effect next election cycle, and I think the adverse effect of that is going to be more of this BLM and Antifa stuff, or just moron leftists that want to come in and break things, and just be a general nuisance. If you look at the Canada protest, there's 100,000 truckers or something descended on on Canada, and nobody got hurt. Nothing got burned. Nothing got destroyed. And that's a protest. That stuff is not a protest. That's a riot.
Sure.
That there's a clear and present danger for anybody there, that even for people that aren't rioting enough can be attacked by these morons.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just because that, and yeah, it happened all in blue cities and blue states. But I think that mentality is growing, that entitled younger generation mentality, that they deserve something for nothing. I firmly believe that it was probably funded and instigated by left-wing organizations that, just wanted to make a mess. They weren't trying to make a point. They just wanted to hurt people and hurt people's businesses and all that kind of thing. So I would be more concerned about a large group of people than I would being out in public and coming across an active shooter.
Sure. I mean, left, right, wherever the political spectrum falls, I think we're going to see this one way or another. Right. In the future, whether it's right, whether it's left, I think we have lunacy on both sides. So that being said, I'm 100% in agreement with you that we should anticipate this in the future, whether it's in the big cities, whether it's in the burbs, and in northern Arizona. The fact that there was issues going on in Prescott really blew my mind. Having been to Prescott a few times, my alma mater SI being up there.
Yep.
And the fact that it made its way up there is really interesting, to be honest with you. And that's why it was really interesting about having this discussion about the Tazi class, having taken it with you, and specifically remembering, the scenario-based stuff,
mm-hmm.
right? The counter-kidnapping
mm-hmm.
stuff that we dealt with. And I think
and
that's
kind of
still, it's very alive, though. It's very alive.
Yeah, that's content I pulled from Ucoin Experience, was the kidnapping portion, because it's a very good tool. And basically I just reversed what we would use to snatch somebody off the street, and just reverse that. What if you were the guy getting snatched up off the street?
Yeah, I think that's a very underappreciated skill set, specifically for those types of scenarios, because I feel it's very underreported. The amount of people who simply go missing,
especially this part of the country. I mean, cartel activity. We just saw that video of, these armed cartel stealing one of those off-road razor vehicle deals.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw that video, but yeah, like I said, large groups, and like the cartels are getting more and more bold. Especially this part of the country. You could rub them wrong and not even know it.
Sure.
All of a sudden you get snatched off the street.
Well, hell, you walk into something you didn't even know you just walked into.
Yep.
And that's just the way it is living where we live.
Yep.
Right. And it's interesting. I really, that was one of my preferred classes and the curriculum that you guys offer just because of its relevancy to every day, right? You know, maybe some of the other classes not as relevant to my day to day, but I think that one's fantastic. You know, not only to take, but to take that type of mindset and take it home with you, and to instill it into your loved one, as well as like, hey, you know, this type of shit can happen, and it can happen right outside, right. So
in full public view,
and the reality of the matter is nowadays people are more inclined to video it and send it up on TikTok or whatever the hell the social media app is of the generation, and everybody got to watch. You know, you be taken, never to be heard of from again, but. You know, there you are.
And nobody's going to help you. They're going to video it so they can put it on YouTube.
You know, it reminds me a lot of,
but nobody's going to help you.
You know, old school classes teaching specifically female assault victims to yell fire instead of rape. Yeah, because people, the inclination to become involved. And now I think we're becoming more and more disassociated as a society to become less inclined to become involved. And rightly or wrongly, I mean, here's the deal. I mean, if you got court siding with siding against Good Samaritans or and you know, civil suits and all that jazz, you know, I get it. But I just, you know, the relevancy of those types of classes and the lack of interest drives me up the wall.
Yeah.
Because of how many times in your day to day, if you just, you know, get your face out of that phone and take a look around you and notice the things that are going on around you, I mean, your mind would be blown. And those types of classes help you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's certain things that people don't even think of. I mean, I don't loiter in my car. I see people like eating lunch in their car and they're sitting there in their car. That's a great way to get carjacked. Mm-hmm. Don't loiter in your car. You know, don't trap yourself, you know, unless you're being very situationally aware. Don't trap yourself at the gas pump. Make sure you got an avenue of escape. You know, just little things like that, you know, are, you know, little things that can keep you safe and help you notice things. You know, when you walk into a restaurant, where's the fire exit? Yeah. You know?
Hell, I am buckled before I park.
Yeah.
As I'm pulling up, I mean, we just went to lunch.
Yep.
We're pulling up, I'm unbuckled, and there we go. I mean, it's subconscious at this point.
Yeah.
Right? Subconscious at some point. We're going to change kind of direction a little bit here, but I want to stay relatively on this topic because I received a lot of text messages when they found out that I was going to have you on board, and specifically talking about what's currently going on with the Ukraine-Russia conflict, just because of the relevancy that some of the classes that you specifically taught with TASI and CQB and movement over urban terrain, all of the classes that you seem to teach seem to be unfolding right now on social media and the news.
Yeah, very much. I'm probably going to rub some of your listeners wrong because I don't have a dog in the fight. I don't care. You know, everybody's, yay, Ukraine, boo, Russia. It's not that simple. You know, and neither one of them is the good guy. I know that my knee-jerk reaction is because the media is pushing how nice the Ukraine is and everything. My knee-jerk reaction is I'm going to ignore the media and what the media are saying because I know they're going to spread whatever propaganda is beneficial. But there's so many aspects of what's going on in that fight that it's very interesting to look at. For one, Russia hasn't brought the full brunt of their technology to the Ukraine. The Ukrainian Air Force still has airports and planes. Like that should have been the first thing, is to, you know, take immediate air superiority. Functionally, the Russian aircraft are far better than Ukrainian aircraft, but they still have airports and they shouldn't.
That's wild that you mentioned that. You know, that's one of the conversations, you know, within all our little social groups that we have. We tend to write in the same social groups is how in the heck have they not managed to get air superiority? And forget, you know, it's Ukraine, Russia, and whom is right and whom is wrong.
Right.
It's just focus on A and B.
Yeah.
Right. A is here, B is invading. B theoretically should have the technological advancements to own air. Right.
Yeah. Oh yeah. By far.
And given military doctrine, that's what you want to do, right? Or else,
Yeah, I would.
well, no-fly zones wouldn't mean a thing if it wasn't important, right?
Yeah.
So to go ahead and take care of the air, and they haven't been able, or they're unwilling to. I don't know which one it is.
I don't
I mean, they've had simply logistical nightmares from from the get-go. And God bless the Ukrainians, whether you agree with them or not. A people from right? Putting up that fight is wild.
Logistics from Russia are terrible. They're terrible. They're not doing it right. I mean, those bogged down convoys. They've got vehicles they haven't done preventive maintenance and checks and services on. The gypsies are stealing their BMPs. They're broke down on the side of the road.
The local wheat farmer is hooking up his tractor to a SAM system.
Yeah, and I think part of that is that the soldiers aren't really in the fight. And Putin's whole, well, the Ukraine are Nazis. They elected a Jewish president. That doesn't speak to Nazism, at least not in my mind.
Sure.
Maybe it does for a leftist, but who knows? But yeah, just the way that Russia is prosecuting the war, it almost makes me think it's about optics, that they don't want to go in there and just bowl over them, blow through them in a week.
Everything's about optics.
Everything's about optics.
Yeah, look at the 13 on Snake Island. In my life, I needed that to be real, just like I needed the Ghost of Kiev, to be real. I need that to be real. For me, my own personal, I desperately need that to be real.
Yeah,
but is it? Who knows?
The Rambo story. The dude to stand out there shirtless with a PKM, just
sure.
Doing a Afghani death blossom.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know what that is.
Yeah, no, I've been to those classes too.
Okay. Maybe that guy will come out. I'm kind of hoping for that story because that'll make me chuckle. But, Ukraine's been poking the bear for a while. They were talking about, they've been talking about, going to NATO. They've been talking about, whatever, applying to be accepted. I don't understand how that process works, but whatever. But becoming a NATO country. They've talked about annexing Crimea, which would be an enormous deficit to Russia because that's their only warm water port on the Black Sea.
Well, I mean, Crimea was Ukraine's into 2014, and then the Russians came in and annexed Crimea. So I imagine the Ukrainians would like that back. I imagine the Russians aren't necessarily willing to let that go, but
it'd be crippling.
Yeah.
And there's just so much going on with it, and I sometimes my head just starts spinning. Do I appreciate what the Ukrainians are doing as far as arming all willing civilian populace? Absolutely.
And that's where I'd like to go.
And
God's honest truth. In the realm of this conversation, I mean, I'd like to get a bit more micro in how is it that even with the logistical follies, right, that we've seen played out, I mean, forget the fact that you got a, however many mile long convoy that hasn't moved in days because it ran out of gas or whatever the case is, right?
Yep.
I think that it falls back down to the very rural and it almost seems like grassroots movement that the Ukrainian populace has taken up arms as very proud of their country, and I think that starts to fall very much into this type of stuff you teach and how they've been able to have some success. Whether they're successful or not, I guess, is to be determined. But I think it's inarguable that they have had some success against statistically a superior force in the Russian military.
Yeah, they're doing well, and my sources in that part of the world say that they're very ambitious, or not ambitious. What's the word I'm looking for? They're not excited.
No, I think they're very much determined.
They're
if
determined,
anything else,
and they've got a good outlook on it. Like we're here to to do this. They're not just like half in, half out. Okay, I'm gonna go do my 3 days of training, get my body armor, my AK, and go to the front line. They're there to fight. And you bring up insurgency, and so who would be considered the insurgents would be the Ukrainian people, because the Russians are a uniform army. You know, they're not hiding among the populace. They're not behind every corner, beneath every rock type thing. So they're a uniformed army that are easily identifiable, whereas the Ukrainians aren't. Now, for counterinsurgency, that would be the Russians' job. That's going to be, in some ways, I think that, because it's all going to boil down to human intelligence. That's what's going to make or break this conflict, is human intelligence. If there ever is a clear and decisive winner, and the only way you get human intelligence is from people. And so I think once they get settled in and start moving in on these urban areas, and Russia's historically very good at this, they're going to start ghosting people. They're going to be snagging people off the street. And the downside of what's going on right now with the way Ukraine is prosecuting the war is you have a bunch of people that are very patriotic but with little to no training. And, I mean, nobody can suffer indefinitely, through enhanced interrogation techniques and the like.
Sure.
Right? But you're going to have a bunch of these people that have little pieces of the puzzle, no training, they may not even be recognized, as a military force. So, none of the normal rules accorded with a conflict like this would apply. Kind of like early days, GWAT. I don't know if Russia has an island or a boat or whatever, a black site that they can take these people to, but that's what I foresee. Once they start digging into these larger urban areas, they're going to start snagging people off the street. They're going to start getting more and more intelligence. They're going to know more and more. The advantage of the Ukraine side is that because these people have no training, they're not going to be given access to that much. But what they see and what they hear can't be, 100% controlled when they're around military environments and around military information. So that's the conflict that I'm most interested in, because it's fluid. Most human intelligence expires after 72 hours. It's useless. So I think once they start grabbing people, it's going to change the way that Russia is prosecuting the war, if they're serious about it. Or, I mean, who knows, how serious they are about this invasion. But I think it'll change the way they prosecute the war, and it'll change the speed at which they start doing things. And I think it'll be brutal when they start doing it. It kind of, with conscripting all these volunteers, they're not conscripts, but with all these volunteers, that kind of opens the door for Russia to not just target military sites, but to attack civilian sites, and they have been. So it's good and bad. It's good to see that patriotism. It's good to see, and it's good for Americans to see what an armed populace, we have so many guns and gun owners in the United States, so many veterans. We've been at war forever, and we have tons of veterans that are very, patriotic as well. And I think it's good for America to see that with the Ukrainians. And I think it exposes a lot of the leftist propaganda of, if we can save one child by outlawing guns, well, you're not going to. And it's funny to me to watch the left cheer for arming the Ukrainian civilian at the same time they say American civilians shouldn't have it.
Yeah, right at the State of the Union, right?
Yeah. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's hypocritical. If you can't see it, you're just party blind. It blows my mind. And I think the Ukrainians are going to have a advantage from the insurgency standpoint, because they know the towns, they know the cities, and anybody that's ever had any military training and gone through any kind of, I mean, even the most basic mount training, or just watch Band of Brothers, because that's where a lot of the initial mount experience, the urban terrain experience, came from. And a lot of what they do is still taught because it still works. I mean, a structure's structure, a door's a door, you know, a hall's a hall, stairs are stairs. They don't change. But when you know that ground and you can make adjustments to that ground that hampers an attacking force, a handful of people can hold up an enormous number of attackers for an extended period of time with little to no loss. It's just, it is the most dangerous warfare there is urban warfare.
So what are you thinking? You're thinking that the Ukrainians at this point should start to just shoehorn themselves in, get ready for the, you know, to mount an insurgency? I mean, because a lot of us already thought they'd be there at this point. The fact that it lasted over 48 hours is really mind-boggled quite a few professionals, right?
Yeah, I was even talking with some friends of mine that you know, are very experienced in special warfare, and I think even you and I were talking about it, and you're like, oh, this is going to be done in a couple of days or something.
I thought it was going to ramp up. And I still anticipate that the Russian military is about to make a seriously massive push, just because the egos of the people involved have taken a tremendous hit, especially on the international stage. The fact that I don't think there was really any military experts or advisors out there who thought this would take longer than 48 hours. And here we are on day 6 or 7. I've lost complete count, to be honest with you. I mean, the reality of the matter is like, why are they there? Why are they still there? Why has this not ended, or at least proceeded to the next stage, which seems to be the stage that we're nipping on, right? We're already making the assumption that the Russian military is going to grab a foothold and take the majority of the cities within, you know, the Ukraine. Yeah, and then the Ukrainian folks are going to be doing a counterinsurgency.
Not the Ukrainians. The Russians will be doing counterinsurgency on...
Or an insurgency, you're
yes.
right. Yeah,
they'll be conducting an insurgency. But, yeah, and when you see a logistical nightmare like what's going on with the Russian military right now, that's just a failure of leadership. That doesn't come down to, like, the individual soldier or whatever. Their leadership is failing badly. But it will get straightened out. I fully believe it will get straightened out. I'm not rooting for either one. I mean, from an America First standpoint, the nice thing about it is that that we get to, and maybe this might be a reason that that Russia hasn't committed a lot of their top end stuff as far as air power and ground power, is that right now we get, as America, as the United States, we get an amazing opportunity. And the opportunity that we get right now is that we get to test all our new generation Stingers and all our new generation Javelins on reactive armor and on the top end, or, you know, on active Russian aircraft. I mean, you can test in theory and on drone targets and all this kind of stuff all you want, but, you know, when the metal meets the meat, you got to know your stuff works. So now we get to see how effective our Javelins are against, you know, their most advanced armored, you know, their reactive armor or whatever they're using. So we get to test that. We get to see it in real time and get real evidence on the effectiveness of that weapon system. And the same thing with the Stingers and the Russian aircraft that are in theater. As the Ukrainians utilize those, you know, this generation, whatever it is, I think we're like on 7 or something of Stinger, we get that real-time data that you can't get from testing or projection or whatever. And so that's the biggest win that that we're going to pull out of that.
Sure.
You know,
like,
and I don't think we should be sending Ukraine a bunch of arms and armament and money and all that kind of stuff. I really don't.
Do you see this have an effect here in the United States? In what kind of effect do you think it's going to have, if it's going to have any?
That's interesting. Like socially?
Sure, socially, economically, or I don't think, hopefully, God willing, right? We don't have any boots on the ground there. So I'm thinking within the continental U.S., right? We have quite a lot going on. And what type of ramifications do you foresee happening here within the continental United States?
Well, I'm still old enough to remember 18 months ago when we were energy independent and gas was $2.
Sure.
And that finally, Biden just today, Brandon just today, finally went full in on an embargo, and we're no longer going to get Russian oil. Okay, great.
Where's it come from?
But yeah.
Where's it coming from now? If we're not drilling, where's it coming from?
Yeah, if we're not drilling and the pipelines are shut down, and it's not even, that one pipeline wasn't even built yet. But how could we be energy independent 18 months ago, and now a Russian embargo on Russian oil is projected to spike up our gas prices by at least another $1? I mean, gas prices right now are higher than they were during the apocalypse in that Will Smith movie.
Yeah, dude, really, seriously. That was at what, 4.25 when we were driving, 4.30 or whatever the case was?
Yeah.
Just today when we were driving back from shooting out in the desert, and I was thinking to myself, I'm like, holy mother of pearl, dude, you got to be kidding me right now.
Yeah.
And it has been moving up, and it's not the fact that it moves up or it moves down, it's by the sheer amount.
And the speed.
Yeah, and it's like from yesterday to today, I think it was like $3.99 yesterday or 2 days ago, and now I'm at 4.25, 4.30, whatever the case might be. And it's like, holy smokes. And that, of course, is going to have the trickle-down effect, right?
Yeah.
So, everything's going to cost more because things got to move from A to B, and that takes fuel. So we're talking about not only food prices, right, but any other basic amenities, furniture, whatever the case might be, I think it is going to go up. And my curiosity, just from sitting on this point of the table, is, does that reach a boiling point here, or with the current administration, right? Does it not reach a boiling point during this term? And if, he's reelected next term, does it continue the way it is with no big, I don't know, like match, like a lighting point? Because I almost feel like this just needs an ignition source, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, well, when you consider that the Boston Tea Party was like over a 3% tax on tea,
Well, let's be real here. There, the people that existed then are not the people that exist now.
No. That old quote. I don't know if I remember the whole thing, but hard men, or hard times create hard men create easy times create
soft men,
soft men. That whole thing. It's true. It's true. You can see it. I mean, when you have a feelings room in colleges, most of these kids, I mean, I was carrying a rifle and a rucksack, at their age. And these kids don't have enough emotional stability that they need a room to go to that they can put a sticky note with their grievance up on a wall and cry. Like, for real? I'm a Midwestern farm boy, old man military, that's not a thing. Like you crush that down, you put a lid on it until that time when you get, God put something in your way that you could pop the lid off and just let that rage boil over onto somebody. Now, occasionally, you're going to spill some off the top of the lid and it'll land on somebody unintended for that, that anger to come out at. But no, military has trouble filling their quotas because people are too fat.
It's wild, isn't it?
It's crazy.
It's absolutely wild.
I remember being a little kid or even like high school age and whatever, I could just run forever because I was always doing something.
Like being chased by the cops.
That could be, or an angry father, or,
Right.
But yeah, it's, we were always doing something. There wasn't this sit staring at your phone like an idiot, just consuming this stuff. And like, our daughter, she's 14 or 15, 14. She's in there somewhere, right? And she's always exhausted. Always exhausted. And I was thinking about it, and I'm like, well, when you receive that much stimulation all day, every day, and you create this own stress for yourself. How many likes did I get today on this picture? How many people are on my Snapchat?
How many followers did I lose?
How many followers did I lose?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
Like I get stressed out thinking about it. It makes my hands sweat. And relying on that input, that feedback from people that don't even care. Like that wasn't a thing when we were kids.
No, hell no. Hell no.
That wasn't a thing.
Yeah. I'd have to ride my bicycle over to your house.
Right.
And pray the entire way there
that you're there.
That you were there.
Yeah.
And if you weren't there, son of a bitch. No, back to my house. Yeah. And by the time that happens, the light's on the street.
Right.
And
it's time to go home. Well, and
better luck tomorrow.
And this is a weird one. Remember answering the phone when you didn't know who was on the other end? Remember that?
I still do it, to be honest with you. I'm like, who's this?
But yeah, and I got to thinking about it, and that's what these people are. They constantly are consuming this stimulation all day, and then they don't want to do anything. They just want that stimulation more. I'd say it's an addiction.
I'd absolutely agree with you, and that's an addiction. And my mindset and all of this type of stuff is seeing, touching back on Russia and how they've been able to turn everything off. And I think back to how much information is controlled. Yeah. Right? Whether you're left, right, to me, it's irrelevant. If you can't see that both sides control information, there's something seriously askew with what's going on in between your ears.
Well, and here's something that people will find crazy. Read both sides.
People love living in that echo chamber.
Yeah.
They love it. Not many folks are a sucker for conflict.
Even if you disagree with it, at least you know what they're saying.
I'd rather you disagree. Make me think about something I may have missed.
Yeah.
Right? I don't need you to agree with me, right?
Yeah.
I'm already arrogant enough to think that I'm right.
Yeah.
Right? So give me something else. Make me think. And it's absolutely wild that the second we start seeing any type of conversation, communication, instantly it gets to start swinging into these extremes. So, well,
and that's why my knee jerk on the whole Ukraine thing is like all media, social media. I mean, even like conservatives, liberals, all media is pro-Ukraine. And I can't get that kind of mass information of this unity between two vastly different thought processes that yay Ukraine. I can't swallow that without looking at it and really thinking about it. I like to read the stories of the ghost jet or
sure.
Whatever.
Here's the thing, and by no means am I a subject matter expert in the thing, but in regards to stances, listen, I can completely appreciate that we have a superpower, a nuclear superpower, right? Yep. Invading a neighbor. I get it.
Yeah.
I totally understand it. But mother of pearl, we've been doing that for a while.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah. If you reverse it and think about, what the United States did during global war on terror, we did it as bad or worse. Sure.
And here's the thing. I don't want anybody to take away from this that I'm pro or anti.
Right.
Either. I'm just talking about the dissemination of information based on how the current generation receives its input, right? TikTok, right. Whatever, Instagram and whomever else, and the control over that. And that's the knee-jerk reaction that we loop back to what we're discussing that you're having.
Yeah. And you talk about, you're asking about economic impact, and I was trying to find something. Think about this. So because of the embargoes and potential for the U.S. to withdraw, trade. Think about this. Russia is talking with China and North Korea about their own monetary system.
Yeah, that's been going on for a while.
Can you imagine that? Can you imagine what that would do to the dollar?
Well, yeah, the dollar would cease to exist at that point.
Yeah, over there. Yeah,
and for sure. Well, we are completely tied into the Chinese economy. The Chinese decide they're doing something else. I mean, oh man, that's outside of the scope of information and knowledge base that I have. But man, that'd be an interesting conversation to have with a bit more information, right?
Yeah, I wish I was more knowledgeable on it. The national economics and that kind of thing. I wish I was more knowledgeable on it because, like, that's a worry to me. Is because you really want to screw this country, you can do your little terrorism thing. You can, some nut job can go shoot up a school. Some, wacko can build an ampho bomb and in Oklahoma City, that's still going to be out there. But you want to see mayhem, crash the dollar. You want to see mayhem in this country, crash the dollar.
Sure.
Because, as hug everybody and I'm a big fuzzy teddy bear as leftists are, you crash the dollar and you watch people go nuts.
Well, I mean, there's definitely studies been out there for the life of me. I can't remember the order of it. But the reality of the matter is that we are a very polite society currently because we're all comfortable. And once we cease to be comfortable, whether that is in our homes, in our food sources, in our clothing, whatever the case is, we become a very unpleasant species to be around.
A group, a person can be reasonable and pleasant and, function under logic and reason, but people en masse are dumb, panicky animals, and they're fucking dangerous.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Never underestimate the crazy that can come out of large groups of people. It's wild. I'm trying to think of a good example. Well, just the Antifa riots in Portland. Just Portland.
Sure.
Look at Portland.
Yeah.
Just insane.
Yeah. That was a shit show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And actually, that's a good example of counterinsurgency because the cops are going in there. They're identifying the main instigators and snagging them out. But another more subtle example of counterinsurgency is look at this gal, and I apologize, I don't remember her name. I read a lot of stuff and I retain what I can. But this gal that was basically one of the organizers and orchestrators of the Canadian truck protest. She's in jail. Like, they picked her up a while ago. They didn't initially charge her. She has no bail. They don't know when her trial is going to be. She's essentially, because it was considered that she would probably do it again. They're just locking her up indefinitely.
So how would that correlate with counterinsurgency?
Because they snagged out that person, picked them up, probably gleaned as much information as they could under, whatever Canadian, law is.
Sure.
And they're just holding her. And the reason they're holding her is to get more information and to keep her out of the loop. Do you know the first thing that a military unit does when it sets up in an area?
Panic.
Huh?
Panic.
No, the very first thing, first order of business, is to set up communications. Number one. Communication is key. So from a counterinsurgency standpoint, if you can slide in there and snag one of the main directors, we did it in Iraq. They put them on playing cards.
Sure.
The Ace of Spades.
I remember.
King of Hearts or whatever. Yeah, snag those people up. And, and that's what they did. But it was kind of like a soft counterinsurgency. Oh, well, she's been arrested for instigating, blah, 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 blah. Oh, is that a charge? I think she's been charged with something now.
Sure,
but she's been in jail for months. Or at least weeks.
Right.
For far too long, with no bail and no hearing and no nothing.
I'm not familiar how their due process, if it is, even exists.
Yeah, I don't know.
There, yeah.
And watching the way that they're strangling, the First Amendment up there. Well, they don't have the First Amendment, but freedom of speech in general.
Sure.
Up there, strangling it. I'm almost more interested in Canada than I am Ukraine, because Canada was supposed to be this civilized, Canadians love everybody. You never meet a rude Canadian, and like Trudeau's going like full dictator, and people seem to think it's okay, and that's our northern border, gang. And it's that same mentality is trickling into U.S. politics if you're paying attention.
Where do you see that going on the northern border?
I don't think it's going to be bad, mainly because I don't see Canada partnering up with like Russia or China or whatever. Yeah. So I wouldn't be worried about it. I'm more worried about the southern border with the cartels, because I could totally see the cartels getting in bed, because they basically run the whole top end of Mexico along the border.
Oh, let's be real here. I mean, they're well integrated and woven into United States politics.
Yeah.
Especially, us here in Arizona.
Yeah.
And God willing, we're going to have a subject matter expert on that specific stuff in the future. But yeah, that absolutely exists. But my curiosity with the Canadians in general, coming from the Metro Detroit area, it's funny how you can see some of their politics and their beliefs or whatever may be going on slowly starts to bleed over that border.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nothing crazy, but it slowly starts to bleed over.
Yeah. Look at Michigan, look at New York, look at,
the entire northern border with, there's some rare exceptions, but man, you start getting into Washington gets into Oregon. The only reason I bring up those two is because they put themselves on the national stage within the past couple of years, for acting a fool.
My first class down here when I was in Arizona, I was teaching a bunch of Canadian police, because they can't get training up there because, it makes them too aggressive and this, that, and the other. So they have purchased guns that they can't take home, that they store here so that they can come down here and take training, because they can't get training from their departments because of how people skillsy, they're supposed to be and how soft they're supposed to be.
It almost seems like they're really hiring, and not just them per se, but it seems like there's a lot of hiring with the intent for customer service representatives.
Yeah.
Than there is for any type of law enforcement or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. Well, and it's getting worse down here.
It is. No, unequivocally it's getting worse down here. We know some of the same folks that have told us specifically we're hiring customer service representatives.
Oh.
And enforcing the law has become extremely gray, which is wild that it's as gray as it is. I'm like, listen, is there a law? Is there not a law? We're working in black and white. Let the judges deal with gray.
Yeah.
But when you start getting into some of these areas, you're like, holy smokes, is it really worth enforcing this?
Well, and like the thing that grabs me is I see these things like, these officers were ambushed by such and such, Dave Smith or whatever. Dave Smith is now in custody, yada, yada, yada. What? Like, I'm not wearing the uniform, but, and I'm not saying that the police should be vigilantes, but it wasn't that many years ago that dude would be done. Like DRT, dead right there.
Sure.
Like, get that guy a forever box, because like you don't attack, brothers and sisters in law enforcement and get taken custody. Yeah, if he.
Here's the thing. The reality of the matter is, there's circumstances. People suffer from mental illnesses, and I'm not advocating for shooting or not shooting anybody.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? I think it becomes a lot more complicated than maybe this conversation and the depth of this conversation.
Sure.
But I appreciate what you're saying.
But I think it's the mentality. I think it's the mentality that, if somebody can shoot 2, 3, 4 people, and either response wasn't, and I'm not disparaging police. Please don't. I get enough hate mail without that. But it's just a mentality in law enforcement. It's bleeding into the military too. I thought, like, even when don't ask, don't tell was a thing in the military. We don't care. Don't ask. We're not going to ask. and please don't tell us.
Sure.
You know, even I thought that was ridiculous. Like, you know, if you're putting on green, well, tan, well, whatever that color they use now, multicam, you know, if you're putting on green and you're willing to stand in line next to me, I don't give a crap. I don't care. Are you good at your job? You know, I served with a number of homosexuals. Did it bother me? No. In fact, one of the gals I served with was a master at picking up women. It was unreal. She was amazing at it. It was like a magic trick. It was unreal. Did I care? No. Am I going to still sit down and drink a beer with her? Yeah. I don't care. And that's been so bred out of the military. You know, I don't want a kinder, gentler military. Your job is to go in there and take lives and break stuff. And, you know, and did I hurt that person's feeling because I, you know, kicked their goat? Like, oh, here's $1,000. You know, did you accidentally shoot somebody's camel? Oops. Well, here's $5,000. Like, there's a pay scale, or there was in Iraq. Like for that incidental damage of killing animals, which I agree with. You don't want somebody, you know, like Vietnam area, you know, shooting everybody's, you know, shooting a whole village's pigs or something. Of course, I get it.
I follow
get
what you're saying.
But it's just the mentality of you know, am I going to hurt that person's feelings as I take over their village? Yeah. And you're going to break their stuff, and they're going to be mad. And, you know, potentially they could become insurgents. Yeah,
and what you're saying, what I hear that you're saying is just part of the job.
It's the gig. That's the gig. You know, that's what you signed up for. And, you know, and I thought it was bad, you know, from when my old man was in service. He had to go to sensitivity training. He had to take a sensitivity training class because the Army was changing. And that was, you know, 80s.
Sure, yeah.
You know, and now it's just gotten worse and worse and worse. Well, females need feminine uniforms. How about you wear the uniform? Well, the BDUs just aren't feminine enough, or whatever they call them now. You know, what? You know, they're not designed, you know, to be fashionable. You know, there's a reason that they're called utilities. They're for utility. And it's just little stuff like that. And I hate the phrase, the slippery slope. I just think that's moronic. But it's those little pieces that erodes what I consider a brotherhood of the military. You know, and it erodes discipline, and it erodes the love you have for it, I think.
Sure.
Because, you know, when I think about it, and I've said this 100 times, it's like stuff that sucks is fun. I loved all the stupid stuff. And I was, you know, I had my own shenanigans that got me in trouble, but I love the stupid stuff. You know, oh, you got to lace your boots left over right. Still do it. All my shoes. Left lace goes over the right lace. You know, just stupid, you know, polishing your shoes. Just the discipline of sitting down and polishing your boots or your shoes. That brings something to that individual. You know, do I agree that like even suede jungle boots are way better than, you know, the old Greensiders? Yeah, they're more comfortable. I like them. They require less maintenance. But just having a pair, you know, to shine or two pair or whatever, you know, just that discipline of sitting down and shining.
Sure.
or even like metal rank, the metal pin-on rank. You had to have this, I don't remember what it's called, but like this black nail polish, flat black nail polish. So like if you got a little chip in the finish and there was a little bit of brass showing, to go back over that metal rank. And because I wasn't going to get sewn on rank until, I got a rank. I received until I got my sergeant stripes.
Sure.
So, I didn't sew anything on. So having to go over that to make sure it's black, and just little stuff like that. It's attention to detail. It's discipline. It really, you almost, like when you're doing it, it's like, this sucks. I hate it. This is stupid. What difference does it make? And it doesn't. But it gives you, pride in your uniform, pride in your branch of service, pride in your, what rank you've achieved, all that kind of stuff. And I loved all the old guy stuff. Like hand-stitched name tapes from Germany. Or I'm sorry, Korea. From Korea. And you could tell somebody's been to Korea because you could look at their name in U.S. Army, and it's hand-stitched. So it looks a little wonky, but it's hand-stitched from Korea. So, he's been to Korea. Or green-sided jungle boots.
So you think the perceived disconnect that we currently have with our modern military compared to what you're discussing is just...
It's all throwaway.
Yeah.
Velcro patches, which I think is super handy, but, Velcro patches. The uniforms don't have to be pressed,
Softer, it seems like, right?
It's softer. And I'd like to think both sides of every argument. And sometimes I sound like, just the old grunt that, bitches about stuff. But, it's those little pride points that I don't think exist. Like when I had, if I had to, show up for whatever and be pressed, spits and starches, my boots would be glass and my creases could cut somebody and they could stand up by themselves because I had to peel the legs apart. I would starch them so heavy. And free field guys, easy. I also had Sannies, and I also had stuff that I never starched. So, because starch glows in the dark under night vision goggles. So, little tip for you guys. So does fishing line. For tripwires, don't use fishing line. But all these little pride points are leaving, and when you see it in dripping into the military, especially a volunteer military, it's got to be far, far worse in civilians, amongst civilians. I just look at the way people dress. We went to the range, so, we got range clothes on.
Sure.
But that's not...
Are you saying there's less pride in what people are wearing? And
less pride in their appearance.
Yeah.
Like, you can have a cheap pair of shoes, but if you maintain those shoes and take pride in those shoes and take care of those shoes, I can tell.
Well, sure. Growing up, we're immigrants, you know my backstory.
Yeah.
And my mother was very much of like, listen, man, there's a big difference between being poor and acting like you're poor.
Yeah.
Right. You may not have two pennies to rub together, right? But you take care of everything.
Yeah.
That half penny ended up purchasing, for you. No, I totally feel, I totally appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you and I are about the same age, and, it's like, I really, this country's gotten so soft. It really breaks my heart, just the clothes kids wear to school.
Sure.
Well, my sister just got a new phone, so I need one too. Well, what's wrong with your phone? Nothing, but it's not the newest one. So Like we were talking earlier, does this phone call? Does it text? Does it check email? You know, what do you need it to do?
Sure.
Games?
Yeah.
Again, it comes back to that stimulation thing.
Mm-hmm.
And rather than going and getting stimulation in the gym or on a hike or learning a useful skill.
Or I wanted to loop it back into that Tazi class.
Yeah.
All this I wanted to loop back like truly into this because we've discussed all these different facets going on across the planet from micro, here in Arizona to within the continent of us. Now we discussed Ukraine and Russia, and I want to filter all that back to taking these types of classes and earning some sort of pride in being able to do a box drill. If you've never done one, have fun with the first one. I know once you've done it, okay, if you guys have done it, keep it to yourselves type thing.
Yeah.
But once you're able to figure out those problems, you get a certain amount of pride and self-satisfaction in being able to solve a problem. And my want, right, for people like you who put out these classes is for folks who are leaving those environments to take that pride, take that critical thinking, which, man, I feel like they removed critical thinking when I was still in middle school from the curriculum here in the States, right? And take all that, not to mention the self-protection aspect, the protection of others.
Yeah,
right?
and that's the big thing with both Tazi and CQB. Think critically, you're going to come away with some skill set, but I want you to look at things differently. When you're done with that course, I want you to have some pride that you came to that course and you learned something most people won't. And I want you to, I've said it 1,000 times. I don't teach for me. I'm going to charge you something because my time is valuable and it's worth something. But I don't teach for the paycheck. I teach for the students. And like, if you can just grab one thing, like you come to a CQB class, you're never going to look at a structure the same again, ever. It just looks different. It feels different if you actually catch what you're meant to learn in that class. It'll look different. It'll feel different. Same with the Tazi, again, and both of them, it really, like if you really want to get down to the head of the pin, it comes down to personal responsibility.
Sure.
You're taking personal responsibility for your environment. I take personal responsibility for my environment. I take personal responsibility to have a skill set that I can protect those that I care about with. I take personal responsibility that I stay current on the information so I can speak intelligently on it. So that when I do, even if it's just a conversation like this over a cocktail, that I'm, if I don't know anything about it, I'll tell you.
Sure.
My ego is not invested in my knowledge base or my skill set. But if I'm saying something, you better believe I've read about it from more than one angle. I'll give you all a tip out there. If you Google anything, go to the answers on the second page first and look for the most relevant, because they're generally right.
Sure.
They're generally more accurate. Like, just as a little example, and I hate to get political, but no, I don't.
Not even a little bit. We've met.
I don't care.
Yeah, we've met. I'm surprised I've been able to kind of.
Yeah, I don't really care.
Kind of let you off the leash. I was getting worried there every once in a while, but.
Well.
No minefields. That's just good so far.
Yeah. So just a little example of that is there's this falsehood that Democrats and Republicans switched parties. Have you heard
yeah,
this?
I follow.
Have you heard of this?
Yeah.
I actually was in an argument with a buddy of mine. Well, not an argument.
I've met you.
Debate.
You're in an argument. No,
okay,
you're in an
argument.
argument.
I was in a debate, and he brought that one on me, and I knew nothing about it. Shinola, nothing. And so I got to digging, and everything I read on all the articles I read, like on the first page of my Google search all agreed that that occurred. And then I changed the way I did my search. Instead of asking about that, I asked specifics. So I said, how many during this time period, how many representatives, state and federal, switched parties during this time period? One state representative switched parties. That's it. It's a myth. It's a phantom. It doesn't exist. So, and like I said, the war is information. War is information. And right now, people aren't getting information. They're getting sound bites. They're following or getting these little pieces, these little nuggets in like Facebook and stuff like that. They don't take the time to do the research because it's too hard. Oh, I might have to read something that may take me more than 15 seconds. Oh, can't they put this in a video? No. Dig it up and read it. And find out that it's 100% wrong. People don't even read like the CDC stuff on getting the shot. Like, did you go read what they said? What about the FDA? Did you go read what they said?
It seems a lot of people would be inclined to agree with you. Just take everything in.
Yeah.
At face value.
Just suck it in.
Yeah.
The FDA used to recommend that kids be sprayed off with DDT.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, if you want to have a conversation, I tend not to dwell too deep in one way or another if I don't know enough about the topic to be able to have an articulate conversation. We're pro for that.
Well, and part of that is just make a decision for yourself in your own life. Again, personal responsibility. Take responsibility for your environment.
Growing up, we were told that was adulting.
Adulting, yeah.
Adulting,
it's called being an adult. Yeah, it's called being a grown-up. I got my big pants on.
Yeah.
Look at my shoes. They make me go so fast. My new shoes.
The light up ones, man.
Just being an adult and doing that research because, you're even not making a decision is making a decision.
True. True.
So don't you want to make an educated decision?
You would hope so.
Yeah.
You would hope so.
One of the biggest things that drove me nuts was the election for Obama's first term. And I would just ask people, I'm like, who are you voting for? And, well, Obama, of course. Why? Well, he says a lot of good things. Like what?
Yeah, I'd be inclined to agree. I mean, and here's the thing. It's true in every facet, to be honest with you.
Oh, it is.
It's just whatever they feel, whatever the echo chamber is, or what they think it is, to be honest with you. They might not even know what chamber they're currently sitting in.
Yeah.
Right? They're inclined to hop on that. Yeah, man. Well, I feel you.
You throw out just a root cause analysis. The simplest one. Ask why 5 times for any topic. For anything. Ask why 5 times. And it'll lead you to the root cause. Like 99% of the time. It'll lead you to the root cause. Well, this occurred. Well, why did that occur? Well, because this happened. Well, why did that happen? Well, because of this. Do that 5 times, and you'll get to the root cause. And it's simple. It takes seconds. And like with Hick's law, the more choices there are, the longer it takes to make a decision. Just break it down. Do a root cause analysis. Why? And you're going to find the answer. You're going to find the right answer. And you're going to find out what led you to that answer, which means you're going to understand it more. But people don't want to take that kind of time. I mean, I admit, the world moves fast. The world moves fast. Information moves fast. And you got to develop a good filter, or you're going to waste all your time with this information. And it's like, it blows my mind. Like, you've got more computing power in your cell phone than what landed
on the moon.
Yeah,
no, I've heard that analogy.
You have literally the world's knowledge, and It's at the tip of your fingers at any point. You should not be uneducated on any important subject. You should at least know a little bit of something about it.
For sure.
You know?
For sure.
It's right there. It's right there. You know? But no, you're Googling cat memes and poop emojis.
Which are funny.
Yeah, they are funny.
They're pretty funny.
Yeah, they're pretty funny.
Listen, man, we've been running for about an hour and a quarter.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So no, man, you're perfectly good. I want folks to know how they can reach you for more information. I know you got some Instagram. We've been talking about all this apps and stuff like that, and here we are, Instagram, right?
Yeah.
Our email or the SI. How's the best way to get a hold of you and follow up with any questions or hate mail that you're about to get?
Yeah, the best way to get a hold of me is probably through Warrior Talk, which is the Suarez International Forum. I've written a bunch of content for them on multiple different subjects. A lot of it's not PC. Well, none of it's PC.
We've met, yeah.
There's a bunch of stuff to peruse there that I've written. Most of it's tactics and weapons stuff.
Thank you very much for being on our podcast. It's been amazing. In all seriousness, thank you so much for coming, man.
No, it's
been insightful. Hopefully some of our listeners get different perspectives on things, and maybe we'll get them thinking about one thing or another. I mean, we've talked about quite a lot going on in the world, and hopefully some of it they'll find relevant, and maybe they'll start seeking out things such as, training, or at least becoming more aware. Go to the grocery store, take off your seatbelt before, you pull in, get off your phone, know where your kid is at, right? And that whole jazz.
Yeah.
Greg Nichols, thank you so much for being with us, man. I really appreciate you, and, maybe we'll catch you again.
Absolutely.
All right, man.
It's fun. Thank you much.